Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 13 of Growing Up with Godzilla. My name is Donny Winter, and this is my show where I have conversations with Godzilla fans about how they've grown up with the franchise, with the character, and how, those different things have shaped them into the people that they are today. And of course, like I mentioned, every single time I have really great conversations, and I've been learning a lot about people, like artists, writers in the fandom. I've been learning a lot about myself too. I've been kind of unearthing things about being a Godzilla fan and my growth with it that I did not realize until now. Today, I have a good friend of mine who is a very talented artist, Fromme, here with me, who goes by AlmightyRayzilla as well. Hello, Ray. Welcome to Growing Up with
Hello.
Godzilla. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
So, one thing that I want to nerd out about before we get any further into our conversation is the fact that the other day I realized that I've actually followed you as an artist for a pretty long time. Because if memory serves me correctly, you have been on DeviantArt and across different kaiju message boards for a long time. Is that correct? Or am I hallucinating?
At least DeviantArt. I think the only kaiju message board I've ever been across was I want to say the Colossal Kaiju Combat, I believe it was.
I was on there as well. Yes. So there is at least some world colliding there, right? Yeah. I followed you on DeviantArt for a very long time, and like you, Matt Frank, a few other artists, and just eagerly consuming your art, And then I had the opportunity to meet you. I think it was either the 2018 or 2019 G-Fest. I bought, to this day, one of my favorite art pieces of yours. This one, okay, so Godzilla vs. Biollante is one of my favorite films. So when I saw this, I had to get it, and I was just like, this is absolutely stunning. To kind of, begin our conversation, do you want to talk a little bit about this art piece and where it came from for you, what inspired it, etc.?
What ultimately inspired this, obviously, is because Godzilla vs. Biollante is my personal favorite Godzilla movie.
Yes. We're basically twins already.
The original copy that I saw it on was the VHS copy that had Noriyoshi Arai's artwork on the cover, yes. Which blew my mind as a kid because I'm like, whoa. Yeah, because at that point, all I knew about was Godzilla versus Megalon. So seeing that really awesome artwork, I was just like, whoa. And then 2017, and we might get into this a little bit later, but it's like, I was just like, I've been a Godzilla fan for 20 years now. Like, I want to do something to really celebrate. I'm starting to, at the time, I was really starting to get into acrylic painting. And I was just like, I need to just go big or go home. So I got me a big 24 by 36 canvas, painted that big piece. I call it the big painting because at the time it was the largest art piece that I had ever done, be it for a school project, be it for my own sanity. It was the biggest piece I'd ever done, which is kind of funny because I also kind of called it that because I also love steam locomotives, and there's an engine that's out there that was that they affectionately called the Big Engine. So I kind of so I kind of nicknamed it the Big Painting in that kind of affectionate tone.
I love that.
I made it at the right time too, because it's like as I was getting ready to go into it, I was almost thinking, man, maybe I should just do this, draw it out by hand, ink it, and then color it digitally. But it's like I feel like if I had done it sooner, wouldn't have had the impact it had. If I did it later, it would have just been another piece that I did. But I feel like I did it at that right time. It just kind of all fell into place. It was just it was definitely an exercise in just, stretching my ability at that time for doing acrylic paintings and just pushing my limits.
That's so good though. And I love that you were inspired by the film art as well. Because that's, those are often our first impressions of the films, especially before we even get to see them. Because I remember the Showa series was the only like Godzilla films I had watched. And I think I've told the story on this series before, but my dad one time brought home Godzilla versus Biollante with that art on it. And I watched it thinking that it was going to be a very similar film to like the Showa era, and ended up being very horrified of Biollante. Nightmares forever. And then, and now, ironically, because most people would assume that a Godzilla movie featuring Mothra would be my favorite, and not gonna lie, they are up there, you know, but for some reason Godzilla versus Biollante takes the top spot for me, because it's just such a great film. And like the film itself is just like this elaborate, gorgeous, grungy piece of, you know, late Cold War art, in my opinion. So
it was definitely a time when Toho was being experimental. Like,
yes.
because like you look at the behind the scenes, the deleted scenes, I should say, like you could just tell that they were really trying stuff, even as outlandish as it was. That it's like, you know, we're just trying it, we're just throwing ideas to the wall and see what sticks. Like even for those who don't know, even the scene where Biollante charges at Godzilla, that was improvised. They were just like, hey, how about we just have a big scene where the plant monster gets up and moves, and even just watching that behind the scenes clip, it's like as soon as the action stops, you could just hear everyone they were just shocked at what they just created. Not just by what they saw, but what they created with it. And it's honestly one of the most memorable scenes in the movie, and it only lasts for like 5 seconds.
Right. And like well, and I also like, if any of you have not had a chance to do this, go look up the deleted scenes, because they are out there circulating. Like there's like alternative endings, you know, etc. The way they tried incorporating like animation, claymation, like that was so interesting. And what really baffles me is that at the time, that film wasn't as popular, but now it's like a huge fan favorite Godzilla film.
It is weird to look at, because I was kind of thinking about that with some other films, like John Carpenter's The Thing, for example. It's like there are so many films that people that whenever it came out, people were just like, "Ugh, it's not that good." Nowadays, people are like, "No, these are some of the greatest movies ever made."
Right, and why it's like a mini cult classic within the Godzilla fandom, and
yeah,
I love that so much. And it was one of the first Godzilla films to kind of set up a degree of continuity with prior films. And I've gone on about this at length before. That's one of the main reasons why I love the Heisei era so much, is because of that continuity.
It's like the Showa era kind of had like thematic continuity, whereas this one actually had narrative continuity.
Exactly.
Because it's like the older films, it's like, you know, you would never have recurring characters, but you would have recurring themes.
Right. Yeah. Before we get into talking about you being an artist, let's kind of do a rewind and talk about you being a Godzilla fan. So, when did that begin for you? How were you introduced to this character and franchise?
Well, I guess many people would say this. It all started with dinosaurs.
No way.
I think I have it pretty much down to not the exact date, but I have it down to somewhere around 1997, thanks to some home videos that have timestamps on them. Because it's like there's a point where it's like in the home movies, I'm just like, okay, here I'm talking about dinosaurs, and then as the films go on sequentially, it's like now I'm talking about Godzilla.
What a throwback! I love it.
But yeah, like anything dinosaurs at that time, it's like whether it be Jurassic Park, whether it be even this classic Planet of Dinosaurs. There was a little documentary that I rented from the library as a kid. It was Dinosaurs, the Terrible Lizards. It has the notoriety of having stop motion animation done by the same people who did Land of the Lost, and even featured the T-Rex, if I'm not mistaken, from that show. But no, it was. But I saw that, and I was just like, okay, I'm into dinosaurs. Then there was Hollywood Dinosaurs, which I'm like, okay, dinosaurs, let's watch it. And of course, it featured classics such as the classic Harryhausen films. Then it went on to King Kong. Then it went into Godzilla, and I'm like, okay, Godzilla's kind of like a dinosaur, except he shoots fire from his mouth, or atomic vapor, if you want to get technical.
Right.
And what sealed the deal for me was whenever there was actually two clips in there that stuck out to me, because the first one was the trailer for Godzilla versus the Smog Monster, the American version, or the American trailer rather. To this day, that trailer just makes my skin crawl, because it's like there is an inherent silliness to the phrase Smog Monster, but the way that narrator says Godzilla versus the Smog Monster, it is terrifying.
Yeah, I remember that vividly. It was.
and yeah, it's like, and the film grain of it and everything, it's just like that's almost why I champion film grain. Like, I don't want crystal clear videos. Like, I like the film grain because it adds an atmosphere to it, and
Mhm.
you know, and it certainly did in that trailer. And with but that was the scary side. But what truly made me say that I loved Godzilla was the clips of Godzilla versus Megalon, when it showed Godzilla doing the infamous tail slide. If I could grab one of my figures real quick, one of my Trendmasters Godzillas.
Yes.
And oddly enough, one of the few Godzillas with its tail sculpted like this, because I always did the tail slide with it.
Oh my god, I did too. I have mine like up there somewhere.
I saw Godzilla do the tail slide, and I'm like, I want more. I've wanted more ever since.
Oh, I know. I was obsessed.
And of course, you know, showing the Trendmasters Godzilla there. Some of the characters I didn't know existed until I found the toys of them, like especially some of the obscure ones, like Varan, Baragon, even my personal favorite, Space Godzilla. Like, the first time I ever saw Space Godzilla was the gods. I'm just looking up at my Trendmasters display is all up above.
Love it.
All up above my desk. So whenever I'm drawing or just doodling on the computer, it's just like,
you have that inspiration to look to. Yeah.
Because of those two things, because of Hollywood Dinosaurs and because of the Trendmasters toys, I was able to really just find my place, find my love for Godzilla, rather. Not necessarily my place, but just find my initial love for Godzilla.
Yeah, that's so important. I also felt the same way when I was introduced to like the Trendmasters lines, because like I didn't even know that like the Heisei era existed beyond Biollante, because like when I got these figures, like there was Batra, there was Space Godzilla, and I was just like, what is this? What's going on? You know? And then I finally got to see those films years later, and I was just mind blown over the films, right?
Yeah. The first time I actually ever saw Batra, it was at a Big Lots, because that's where I got most of the figures, most of the Godzilla Wars line anyway. I found Batra, and I'm like, wow, that's a cool looking Mothra. And then I looked at the name, and I'm like, Batra. But then I ended up seeing the film, and I'm like, okay, that's who Batra is. But I mean, I wasn't off the mark by assuming it was Mothra, because there is a connection there.
Well, see, I was thrown for a loop, because when I finally was able to watch the rest of the Heisei era, I actually got to see Godzilla versus Space Godzilla before Godzilla versus Mothra 92. So and of course when you watch Godzilla versus Space Godzilla, you see those like flashbacks to like that film. And when I saw that, I was just like, what? Why have I like, I need to see this. I need to see it now. But I'm like, okay, so Godzilla versus Space Godzilla was pretty crucial for you as a fan, right? So, like that film tends to get a lot of criticism from Godzilla fans. And sometimes I disagree with the criticism, but I want to know what your thoughts are about that film.
Honestly, I think it's probably like I'm with you. It's like, I don't think it's as bad as people say it is. I think one of the biggest problems with it was that it was kind of, I want to say maybe it was made 20 years too late. Like, if this came out in if it came out in 1976, say, like after Terror of Mechagodzilla, it probably would have felt a little bit more in place with everything. I feel like if you had Ishiro Honda at the helm, or even Jun Fukuda, if you had one of those two, I think things would be a little more tight knit. Like,
Right.
but it's not bad. I don't think it's definitely not the worst Godzilla movie ever.
Oh yeah.
If anything, I will say it gives the most characterization, I think, to Godzilla, to the monsters in general, not just Godzilla, because it's like, at this point, Godzilla is just kind of off minding his own business. Space Godzilla is like, he's just a dickweed. He's like a Disney. He's like a Disney villain almost, because it's and just how he's just trying to stir up trouble. Little Godzilla is cute as all hell.
Oh my gosh.
Even Mogera. A lot of people give flack to Mogera, and I'm like, okay, like what's wrong with it? Well, it's not Mechagodzilla, and it's like it's such a downgrade from the previous film, and which I think that's kind of the point. I think that's kind of the character it is, because it's like if you look at it this way, Mechagodzilla was sent to destroy Godzilla, and it failed. Like, we're against Godzilla. It's just going to end with Godzilla proving that we are no match for him.
Mm-hmm.
Then Mogera, with its limited capabilities, with it being a downgrade, it eventually teams up with Godzilla, and it turns the tide so Godzilla can save the day. So it's like, look what we can do if we work with Godzilla, not against him. And
right.
I feel like Mogera kind of represents a little bit of what Mechagodzilla could have been if done it with the right mindset.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think one of my favorite things about Godzilla versus Space Godzilla is that out of all the Heisei era, and actually out of most Godzilla films, it is the one that establishes the most episodic continuity with the other films. Like, for example, like those flashbacks in the film, like the fact that it takes the character of Miki Sagusa and continues to develop her. Yeah. There is another character in the film that's connected to a character in Godzilla versus Biollante, for example. It really created a lot of continuity. Actually, there's two characters connected to that character from Biollante years ago. Yeah. So I thought what they were doing with that was really good, because to me it was developing the overall story cohesively. I mean, other things could have been done, I think. But I still find it to be a very enjoyable Godzilla film. And I personally like that there's a love story in it, because that's just me.
No offense to Ishiro Honda, but it's like, you look at Terror of Mechagodzilla, that love story ends in tragedy. This one actually has a happy ending. In Godzilla vs. Destroyer, they don't follow up on it, which is...
I literally was about to rant about that. I literally was like, my main criticism is that in Godzilla vs. Destroyer, like, they just forget that Mickey had, like, this love interest, and suddenly she becomes, like, this scorned psychic woman who, So I'm just like...
She's a strong, independent woman who don't need no man.
Right. Well, to me, there are like little gaps in that story. Like, I've managed to kind of fill those gaps with, reading and writing fan fiction, but hey, that's not official. So as an artist, when did your worlds collide when it comes to being an artist in Godzilla? Or did being a Godzilla fan ultimately inspire you to become an artist?
I think it kind of was intertwined, because I do remember just doodling pictures of Godzilla. Like, I have an old sketch from Godzilla from 1998 where this was obviously at the time whenever the then new Godzilla was coming out, and I drew it and labeled it "Old Kind of Godzilla." Just in little kid handwriting. Like, I was 7 at the time I drew that.
Even as a kid, you knew that the 1998 Godzilla wasn't really Godzilla.
Yeah, because the first time I saw it, I'm like, because you compare 65 Godzilla to 1994. It's just like, yeah, they're different, but at least they're still in the same ballpark.
Right. Yeah.
And and unironically, I actually do like the 98 design.
I do. I enjoy it too.
It's a great design. But as for that little sketch, the reason I have one of my old sketches is because I actually made a little encyclopedia as a kid. Like, I forget the website. It's probably long since gone. But there was a website out there that had like character profiles on all the monsters, little character descriptions, even little sound clips of their roars. And I would just print those pages off. And I just had a binder just full of that. And just for posterity, I just put one of my little sketches in there. And then whenever it started falling apart, that's whenever I was just like, okay, I want to save this especially now that I'm having an art career, I might as well start taking this to shows with me.
I'm nerding out right now because I think I remember the site that you're talking about. I think it was like a GeoCities website or something.
Yeah, like this is
It was
25 years ago.
it was a long while back. Oh my goodness. But I used to print those off too. Back when I thought myself an artist. Your being a Godzilla fan was intertwined with becoming an artist. So when did you realize that it was going to be a career focus?
I think it would have to be whenever I met Matt Frank at G-Fest in 2009, actually. That was just back whenever the Artist Alley was really small, and, you know, this was before Matt kicked off his career, but it's like, you know, I heard about him doing commissions, and I just saw the attention that he was getting with some of his artwork. And I'm like, it's like Bob Eggleton's work. It's like Bob Eggleton's work inspired me to kind of draw Godzilla, because I'm like, okay, there's an artist, or like you have to be an artist to draw Godzilla, or, well, you don't really need to be. You just have to pick up a pencil and draw Godzilla. I was just like, he's just got this great form to his artwork, to like to how Godzilla is shaped and all the artwork that Bob's painted. And I'm like, okay, I want to kind of do that myself. And then I saw Matt's artwork, and I'm like, okay, it doesn't have to be photorealistic. And especially with the Godzilla Neo designs, it doesn't have to always be accurate. You could come up with whatever you want. You could make a Godzilla design that you feel best represents what Godzilla is to you. Like I said, I saw him doing commissions and stuff like that. So I'm like, yeah, I'll consider doing this. And then that following year, that's whenever I got my table at Artist Alley, and every year since then, except for 2020, of course, I've been going to conventions and making a little bit of money on the side.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. Well, and I remember Godzilla Neo from it was like late 2000s. It was booming on DeviantArt. Like it was, yeah. Like I can definitely see why both Bob and Matt's art would be inspiring with regard to that. I guess like panning out, like you've established that Godzilla vs. Biollante and Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla are a couple of your favorite films. Do you have any other ones that really like inspire you, especially as an artist?
Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is right up there. The 1974 version. There were times I would watch that film with my grandma, and she would just get a kick out of it. And it is a fairly easy film to follow. But it's just bright and colorful. The characters are a lot of fun. It's like you got to love that 70s fashion. I think that's a trademark of Jun Fukuda, is that, you know, he has a very tight-knit script in his hands. It's like if there's something that's established, it's going to have some kind of conclusion in some way or another. So it's like it doesn't feel like, okay, it's all said and done, but it just feels like it has a satisfying end to it. Like there's no loose ends by the end of that movie. And since you're a Mothra fan, I'm going to say this unironically. Mothra, the original 1961 film,
yes,
oddly enough, was actually my first kaiju film. Like I first saw it, then I saw Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. So Mechagodzilla was my first Godzilla film. But the original Mothra is just an absolutely gorgeous movie. Like it's got a solid pace to it. The music is phenomenal. The characters are so fun. Like even Nelson, like he's the villain. He like that. I forget the. I think it's Jerry Nelson is the actor.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like the whole time he's just got this shit-eating grin that is just like you can't help but fall in love with it.
Yeah, they make these characters larger than life, and in a way, like it's almost believable, right? Because of how excessive they tend to be sometimes. At least I think that they're believable.
Yeah, just take a look at the last 6 years or so.
Yeah, don't even get me started.
Not to go down that rabbit hole, but
no, please, I love going down that rabbit hole. You know me, but it's so true. Like, I mean, with what's been happening the past few years, like we look back at these, you know, characters, like especially from the Showa era, who are, and sometimes in like other areas too, but they're like motivated by money or politics or power, and like in many ways, like they were ahead of their time, but also reflecting the time at the same time. Are there any like specific kaiju or human characters that you were drawn to? You've talked about a few of them, but go a little bit further in depth on some that really stand out to you.
This one might come as a shock to several people, but or not, depending on how you know me. But Ichiro from Godzilla's Revenge, I think I had a really great connection with him because at the time I was like, how old is he? Like 5 or 6, 7 tops. I was 7 whenever I was introduced to Godzilla, and I saw Godzilla's Revenge, and I was just like, I kind of relate to this kid. Like, he's like I wasn't necessarily teased for liking Godzilla. I was mostly teased because of my weight, because I'm a hefty boy. But I kind of related to him, where it's just like, I didn't have very many friends. Those who I would get picked on quite a bit. So yeah, and the one hero that I always fell back on was Godzilla. Although the only dreams of Godzilla that I ever recall having were either because of Godzilla versus Biollante, the charging scene that actually that gave me nightmares.
Yes.
Yes. And I will elaborate on that in a second. But the other dream was just like, oh, cool, I'm at a convention. There's a bunch of Godzilla toys. Wake up, and then I'm like, those toys don't exist. So, so those were the dreams I hated the most. But with the nightmares, I just wanted to mention that Biollante herself, Godzilla too in that movie. Biollante herself was just absolutely scary, but I don't think I was afraid per se. It's more like, what was so fascinating about that movie was how Biollante triggered that fear response. Like, if that makes any sense. Like, I think I was more fascinated that she scared me, not that I was scared of her.
Well, I think a lot of it could be like the radical transformation. Like, you literally go from being a flower to a giant crocodilian tendril-laden beast.
Go from a dainty little dandelion to a thistle.
I know, right. And so, like, as a kid, like, my brain could not, like, grasp that change. Especially, like, when watching that movie, because Godzilla is kind of scary in that film, too. Like, I think that they really...
It's something to do with the eyes, I feel like, because if you look at it, it's kind of got a little bit of that 80s lens flare.
Yes.
Where it's like there's just this sharp glint in his eyes where it's like it really obscures the detail and makes them look very glassy. And
right, yeah.
And like and that's another thing I wanted to mention was like with Godzilla, like some people would say like 1954 with the derp eyes, where it's like if you looked at it head on, the eyes would go 2 different directions. As silly as it may look to at least a Western audience, I always found it kind of unsettling because he's not focused in a straight line. It's like you can't tell which direction he's going to go. His eyes are kind of pointed down as well. So he's staring down at those beneath him. Mm-hmm. But it's also just because it's like it makes him more unpredictable because you can't really latch on to what he's thinking if there's no focus.
It makes him otherworldly, right? And I think that's why Godzilla I thought was scary in Godzilla versus Biollante as well, because like we start seeing more, animatronic motion from the character, like the hissing, like the lip curling. I mean, we did kind of get that in the Return of Godzilla, but like the neck became movable, Oh my gosh, a kitty.
This is Jade.
Hello, Jade. Welcome. Pets in general are always invited, of course.
I'm not paying attention to her. That's why she's up here.
How dare you not pay attention to her? So we've talked about kaiju. Like, are there any specific human characters?
I was kind of going to go back to Ichiro on that, where it's just the idea of him being a Godzilla fan, like, and idolizing Godzilla. It's just like it kind of it obviously resonated with me, being that young, or being his age at the time, and it's just like. And of course, just having to deal with bullies, having to just like there's nothing inherently wrong with liking Godzilla. It's just you got to do. It's like Godzilla's for everyone, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Yeah. I know because the film itself is kind of like it creates like a commentary about like what it even means to be a Godzilla fan, right?
Yeah.
Like almost even like making jest at the franchise a little bit.
Yeah, and it's like, and I know some people really rag on that movie, like, oh, because of the stock footage. Well, as a kid, I didn't care. It's like, okay, I know it's stock footage because that's not the Godzilla that is primarily featured in the movie, but it's like, it's footage of Godzilla. So what more is there? What more could a kid want? Seeing Godzilla
Right.
in action, or like how Minila usually gets shit on because it's like, I don't know why, because it's like some people just say like, oh, it's because Minila needs defending, probably because he's an infant. He doesn't destroy cities because that's not the point of his character. So it makes
Right.
me want. So, and that's even why some people don't like Gamera, is because they look at Gamera the same way they would look at a Godzilla film, and Gamera is not Godzilla and never will be,
Right. Yeah.
nor should he be.
It's interesting that you're talking about Gamera, because I literally just started watching the Showa Gamera series for the first time ever. And I've been trying to like watch the films without having that like Godzilla bias, being like, what is going on in this film? You know? And it's interesting we're bringing this up because was it Kaiju Hime I was talking to about this, but we were talking about how we kind of like have this period of like insatiable criticism that we go through as Godzilla fans when we reach like a certain age, because I think we kind of think of ourselves as movie critics at a certain point. And then we get older and we're like, wait, are we being too critical? Like, can't we just enjoy things?
Are we the baddies?
Right, like, are we the villain? Are we the drama? So, with all this in mind, how has Godzilla shaped you into the person you are today?
I don't think I'm as cynical as I would usually appear to be, like especially concerning a certain sketch that really upset a few people this past month.
Oh, yeah.
You know which one I'm talking about.
I do.
But
I was a fan, but you know, hey.
yeah. But it's like, I think it's given me a broader perspective. Like, you know, like kind of paraphrasing what was said at the end of Godzilla versus Biollante. It's like, no matter where you go, people are the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's like going to all these conventions, like, if anything, because of Godzilla, I've met so many great people. I wouldn't be talking to you otherwise.
Right, likewise.
Because of all the people I've met, the friends that I've made, I've realized, you know, that it's good to branch out to other places. Because, like, I've been to some states that I've never imagined I would be to, like, or some areas like Chicago. It's just, you know, the traffic may be hustle and bustle, but, you know, it's, you know, you meet so many different people. I'm originally from the St. Louis area, so it's like, you know, going to a St. Louis convention, I'm seeing all the people in that area. It's like it's like whenever there's a convention, people go there to have fun. Like, if they're there to be judgmental, that's more of a them problem, because that's not what people come here for. I don't know. I guess the best way to describe it is just, you know, I've gotten out. I've met people that I never would have imagined I've met, or I never imagined that I would meet. I've drawn things that I don't think I ever would have imagined that could exist. I think Godzilla, I think this kind of ties into the fact that he's usually portrayed with pseudomation, or at least the older films were, is like there's always a reflection of humanity in him. Like, some people just say like, oh, you could tell that there's a guy in there, but it's like, no, but look at the creature. Like, it's got a humanoid look to it. It kind of reminds us where Godzilla came from.
Right, like
Who he's related
inherently anthropomorphic, right. I definitely can resonate with what you said about the fact that as we've grown, I think that with technology especially, we've been able to connect with other people to share in this media and character that we love, right? Like, that's been very validating, because like I've mentioned this in the past, like I think when we're younger, sometimes being a Godzilla fan can be a little bit isolating, because we're not always surrounded by people who share that affection with us, right?
Yeah.
But once we get older, like, we can make those connections with people and begin understanding, you know, like, hey, like, others have had similar impacts on them as well. And I think that that's very empowering.
And it's kind of good that you brought that up, because it's like some of the times you kind of point out the weird double standard where it's just like it's portrayed with a man in a rubber suit. Well, so was Jabba the Hutt. Or, for example, Rugrats. Like, a lot of people love Reptar, but then I can't imagine. I have yet to hear someone say they love Reptar but hate Godzilla. But it's like, but hearing
Right.
that is kind of weird because gonna dive in a little political here, but it's kind of like racism and homophobia because it's like I can't imagine. Usually, whenever you deal with someone who's whenever you deal with someone who's homophobic or you deal with someone who's racist, they're usually both. They're not one or the
yeah.
other.
Yeah.
It's
They're
like
not collective with their bigotry.
they are two completely different beasts, but they operate on the same mechanism. They're the same. They're two wheels on the same bicycle.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And well, and I think bringing us back to art as well, like I think one of the and I'm going to mention your sketch as well that you did, because I thought it was a very empowering sketch, because you literally were able to take a character and create a commentary on what's currently happening, right? So like I believe that art is powerful in that way, and that the characters that we love and the franchise that we love can in the time that they were created, and they were also creating certain degrees of political commentary, right?
Yeah.
But today they can be adapted to continue having political commentary, because as artists and writers, like I'm including writers as well, like many of us, we throughout history have been the first people to create commentary about like the social things happening around us, calling out injustices, etc.
Yeah.
Ray, I love going into politics, so here we go.
No, I don't really get to talk that much about it, so it's like this is just a great opportunity. But yeah, like it is funny whenever I would hear someone be like, because like someone even commented on that piece, like, how dare you make one of my favorite characters political? And I'm like, have you seen a kaiju movie before? But they're like, but how? But it's like, yeah, they were political for stuff that happened a long time ago. Why do you have to modernize it? It's like, you don't really know how time works, do you? Because it's like they were like in 1954, what was a hot topic of the day? Well, nuclear warfare. What was a hot topic of 1984? The Cold War. So and like to say that a character cannot be modernized in any way, shape, or form, that's whenever I just say, look at Godzilla 54, 84, and then Shin Godzilla. Like, still Godzilla, right, but 3 different commentaries there.
Yeah, whenever I hear people like say things like that, like I always respond with, why are you uncomfortable with the thought of it creating a political commentary? Like, where does that discomfort come from? And I've learned that once people can kind of sit with that discomfort and identify it and figure out like how it works, they kind of start realizing like, oh yeah, like why shouldn't this act as commentary,
Like Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. I don't know if you know him or not, Jared Faust.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I distinctly remember whenever he did that Hedera piece, like it was just kind of in favor of the Green New Deal. And I just said like, like say what you will about the Green New Deal, like, but the whole point of it was to say, maybe we shouldn't be polluting and stuff like that. And then, people got onto him. It's like, how dare you make it political? And it's like, have you seen the movie?
Yeah. It's like, in what reality is that film not about?
Yeah.
Pro ecological
Fern Gully.
Right? Oh, I'm still traumatized.
I love that.
I do too. So in a nutshell, like, art is political and it can create commentary, and I think it's important that it does. And I just want you to know that I am very proud of you for having created that sketch. Like, it was very empowering to me, and I think it's like, I just always admire those of us who are artistic when we are able to use that artisticness to create that much needed commentary. So that's just me, though. It's just me.
Thank you. I just feel like I needed to make a statement. It's like some people say like, oh, don't be political. Some people have told me, maybe you shouldn't be political or whatever all the time or whatever. But it's like, usually what it comes down to is like, not in a very broad sense, politics is just kind of an opinion, like a very big opinion, I guess.
Right. That influences people, and yeah.
But it's like, I mean, it's like, I mean, an opinion is like, I don't like coffee, I like coffee. But it's like, that's just a difference of opinion. But it's just like, when it comes to human rights and everything, it's like, I don't know. I feel like a kaiju film could easily touch upon that, because one of the recurring themes of any Godzilla movie, any kaiju film, is what beats the monster is putting aside all differences. Because, you know, like, as great as Godzilla 1985 is, the Americanized version of Return of Godzilla, what is kind of detrimental to that is that there's a point where, like, where the Russian is on the ship and he's just like, they subtitle him, "I'm the only one who can launch the nuke." In the original version, he's trying to stop it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like, there was, like, that movie was very, like, definitely, like, I mean, what 80s movie wasn't about the Cold War?
Right. Yeah.
But it's like, but I mean, it's like they at least try to uphold that morality of, you know, we've got to work together. It's like, we're not, like, we're all in this together. We're all in the same boat, and if it sinks, we all go down with it. We're facing up against Godzilla in this boat, so we either sink or swim. With human rights and everything, with LGBT rights, with race and everything, it's like all of that could easily be touched upon with Godzilla, or any kaiju for that matter. And it's just like you said earlier, it's just like, you know, why does it bother someone when it's like, you know, it has no effect on them? Like, I don't know, Rainbow Mothra. It's just like, you know, if Rainbow Mothra is adopted as a pride icon, it doesn't really affect me.
Right. I've already adopted Rainbow Mothra as a pride icon.
Oh, here.
Yeah, I love it.
I will say real quick though, I don't know if you've ever seen my perler bead Mothras, where I actually made like a 3D model of Mothra with nothing but perler beads. I actually have the patterns ready to go. Like, I've made Rainbow Mothra, but I actually have the pattern ready to go, where it's like, I actually gave her like a trans flag pattern.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Because I really want, at some point, I really want to mess with people.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. As an artist, I love to do the same thing. I love, like, getting people to think about these things, you know.
Especially whenever you consider that Rainbow Mothra is canonically one, like, Mothra is usually female. Rainbow Mothra is male. Like, that's right. So already Mothra is a trans icon.
Yeah, wow, I've not thought of it that way. Mind blown right now. Like, see, this is why we have these conversations.
Exactly.
So let's talk about collecting really quick. So, like, you said that you do have like a collection. Like, what types of figures do you really like collecting? What other things do you like collecting?
I think what I like collecting the most of is just I collect a variety. Like, I like, obviously, you know, Trendmasters, because that's what I had as a kid. That was all that was available to me at my age. I mean, it's like the Shogun Warrior Godzilla was 20 years before my time. Although I do have one. He's way up on the shelf up there.
Me too. I have mine probably in storage right now.
And oddly enough, then there's Super 7 that came out the gates. Just, you know, Super 7's got that reaction figure, and that thing is all kinds of glorious. Sometimes I collect figures that are good drawing references. Like, for example, Godzilla 1989. I have the SH Monster Arts Kokyo Kyoku Godzilla, where it's, but it's like, I got it mostly because, one, Yuji Sakai is one of my favorite sculptors. And two, because it's a good drawing reference. As a matter of fact, that painting that we talked about earlier, I actually used that figure in reference while to make Godzilla for that painting. I didn't have Biollante at that time, so so I was just looking off of photos and everything, and some of the few figures that I had. But it's good to have those figures too, because it's like, they're good for drawing references, and sometimes they're just good to have because it's like, hey, these represent my love for Godzilla, and they're some cool figures.
Right, yeah. My final question for you, my friend, is for aspiring Godzilla fans and artists, what advice do you have for them moving forward? Big question, I know.
I kind of want to give a big answer to that question.
I love it.
The best thing I could say is stay true to yourself, be yourself. The only wrong way to love Godzilla or anything in general is to love it for the reasons that do not represent it. Like, you can't be pro-war and love Godzilla. You can't be pro-capitalist and love Mothra. You can't be, pro-industrialization and love Godzilla versus the smog monster. It's like, it's that kind of stuff. But, there's no wrong way to love it. Like, if you love it just for the toys, if there's a certain type of toy, like, I've got Trendmasters, I've even got a few X Plus figures, I've got SH Monster. It's like, I've got all kinds of variety. There is no wrong way to collect. Just collect what you can afford.
Right.
But as long as you're staying true to yourself, that's the best way I can say it. And speaking just as an artist, just like, I definitely want to give my best advice when it comes to art. But it's like, my general saying is, don't be as good as the artist you look up to. Be the artist. Be as good as the artist you can be, because you're always going to bring your own flavor. You're going to bring your own to the table, kind of thing.
Right. And we're always measuring our success and our abilities against everyone else's, right? That's a hard thing to get rid of, to stop doing.
Speaking strictly as an artist, follow the 3 Ps: patience, practice, persistence. Patience, because artists usually tell you, practice, practice, practice. Patience in that, it's like, it takes more. That's another reason I brought up that old sketch, is because it's like, I've had so many kids come up to me, they look at that drawing and they look at my art and they just say, oh, I wish I could draw this good. But then I point at that drawing and I just say, well, you have to start somewhere. It's like, patience. Don't just set aside time to draw something, because, that takes time, but also realize it takes time to develop your art skills, your style and everything. Practice, challenge yourself, try new things, try different things, see what you feel comfortable making with. I've tried colored pencils, never been a big fan of them, but I love it whenever people make colored pencil artwork. Like that, they are masters. And then persistence. Once you found your niche, stick with it. That's the best advice I can give as an artist. But like I said, as a Godzilla fan, stay true to yourself.
Oh, I love that. So I guess the last thing is, where can people find your stuff, Ray?
Everywhere. I guess to find everything, just there's a link tree that I have.
Which will be in the description of this video.
Yeah, it'll be down there. But AlmightyRayzilla on DeviantArt. Because Twitter doesn't allow the right amount of characters, I am AlmightyRayzilla on Twitter. But I'm on Instagram. I'm on Tumblr, though I'm not on there as often. Yeah, pretty much if you find one, you find them all. But I try to link them all with each other.
Ray, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a great conversation, and I'm glad that we finally got to have a wholesome conversation like this.
Thank you for having me. It's not often I get to chat with other Godzilla fans like this.
Well, you're always invited back, just FYI. So go check out Ray's socials, and thank you all for watching. Don't forget that Growing Up with Godzilla premieres on the 1st and 3rd Sunday of each month at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So have a great rest of your day, everyone, and talk to you soon. Bye.